Heidi Heckelbeck casts a spell. Chapter 2. Crunchy, Salty Waffles. Heidi stashed the book of spells in her keepsake box and shoved it under the bed. Then she found a silver drawstring pouch that would hold her spell ingredients. The pouch had been a gift from Aunt Trudy. She tied it to her belt loop and dashed downstairs to the kitchen, where Mom and Henry were waiting. Mom had made waffles for breakfast. She placed a waffle and orange slices for Heidi. You know what I'm in the mood for? Asks Heidi. Let me guess, said Mom. Not waffles. Cornflakes, said Heidi. Heidi's mother raised an eyebrow. Haven't you heard? You hate cornflakes. No, said Heidi, but I'm craving crunchy waffles. Me too, said Henry. Heidi rolled her eyes. Do you even know what crave means? Asked Heidi. Yep, said Henry. It means you absolutely have to have something or else you go bananas. Whoa, you're smarter than I thought, said Heidi. Mom set a box of cornflakes on the table. Heidi sprinkled some on her waffles. Then she snuck a few into her pouch. Now she needed salt, but first she had to distract Henry. Cool, said Heidi. There's a maze on the back of the cereal box. Let me see, said Henry. Heidi slid the cereal box to Henry. He studied the maze while he ate. Heidi grabbed the salt shaker. She unscrewed the top and poured some into her pouch. Then she put the salt shaker back on the place. Henry looked up. Hey, Mom, he said. Heidi just put salt on her crunchy waffles. So, said Heidi. So that's gross, said Henry. Then Dad walked into the kitchen. I like salt on my waffles too, said Dad, and ketchup and bacon. Heidi and Henry groaned. Okay, said Mom. Hop to it, kiddos, or you'll miss the bus. Chapter 3. Bruce. Heidi Heckelbeck casts a spell. Chapter 3. Bruce. Heidi looked for some of the spell ingredients on the way on the bus stop. She didn't see a piece of straw or a single puppy tooth along the way. How am I supposed to find a puppy tooth anyway? She wondered. Heidi had never seen one lying around before. Did puppies even lose their teeth? Heidi had no idea, but she absolutely had to have one to complete her spell. Woo-hoo! A voice called, Heidi, Henry! Aunt Trudy waved from her porch. Her cottage looked like a gingerbread house with pink and green trim. She had on a bathrobe and held a cup of tea in her hand. Her red hair was the same colors as Heidi's, only Aunt Trudy wore hers in a braid. Heidi loved Aunt Trudy. She learned all kinds of cool wishy stuff from her. Stuff that her mother would not share. Come visit me after school, Aunt Trudy sang. Sure thing, said Heidi, waving back. Henry waved too. The school bus pulled to the curb a few houses up. Heidi and Henry ran like crazy to catch it. Henry hopped on board and sat next to his new best friend, Dudley. Henry had only taken the bus once, but he acted like an old pro. This was Heidi's first time. Since her mom had given a ride yesterday, Heidi looked around for her friend Lucy Lancaster. Lucy had been nice to Heidi on her first day of school, but there was no sign of Lucy on the bus. Then she noticed Lucy's friend Bruce Bickerson. Bruce had short brown hair and wore tortoiseshell glasses. The seat beside him was empty. Heidi tried to act cool as she walked up to the aisle. Then she sat down next to Bruce. Hey, said Bruce. Hey, said Heidi. The bus groaned as it began to move. So why did you leave your old school anyway? Asked Bruce. I didn't have any old school, said Heidi. My mom homeschooled me, my brother, and me. That's so cool, said Bruce. Did you watch TV and play games when you ever felt like it? No way. We had a strict schedule, but sometimes we got to have school in our pajamas. Sounds comfy, said Bruce. So, are you excited about the school play? Not really, said Heidi. Me neither, said Bruce. I'd rather be working on my sticker tracker. What's a sticker tracker? Asked Heidi. It's a special sticker that I invented, said Bruce. You can stick it on letters, people, even pets. Then you can track the objects on a webcam. I call it the bigger sticker. That's neat, said Heidi. Have you tested it? Yeah, I tested it on my puppy, said Bruce. I saw him dig up my mom's tulip bulbs from my laboratory. You have a puppy? Asked Heidi. And a laboratory? Yup, said Bruce. He's a white lab named Benjamin Franklin, but we call it Frankie for short. My laboratory is the basement. Has Frankie lose any teeth? Heidi said eagerly. Not yet, said Bruce. Can I have one if he does? Asked Heidi. I guess so, said Heidi. I'll trade you a shark tooth for a puppy tooth, said Heidi. Deal, said Bruce. We'll promise to check his puppy bed every day, asked Heidi. Promise, said Bruce. I'll chalk in with a bigger sticker too. He shook on it. Heidi felt pretty good for a change, but the feeling only lasted for a second when she heard a whack. A backpack smacked Bruce in the back of his head. Owie! yelped Bruce. His eyeglasses sailed across 2 seats and landed in the aisle. Heidi gasped. Who would do such a rotten thing? She wondered. It must have been Meanie Maloney. She whipped around to get a good look. Heidi Heckelbeck casts a spell. Chapter 4. Totes and Mice. When Heidi turned around, she came face to face with a squint-eyed boy with a pug nose and freckles. He gave Heidi the evil eye. Heidi turned right back around. Her friend Bruce had his arms out like a zombie and was grasping the air. Poor Bruce. He couldn't see a thing without his glasses. Bickerson's blind, said the bully as he laughed. Heidi spotted Bruce's glasses on the floor. She dove down and grabbed them. As she crawled back to her seat, Heidi noticed the bully's sneakers. She gently tugged the laces and untied them. Then she jumped to her feet and handed the glasses to Bruce. Thanks, he said. No problem, said Heidi. Kids began to file off the bus. The bully shoved his way down the aisle. But before he could get to the stairs, he tripped over his shoelaces and stumbled to the ground. Everyone clapped and laughed. Did you have something to do with that? Asked Bruce. Maybe, said Heidi. Bruce held up his right hand and Heidi slapped him 5. Who was that anyway? Asked Heidi as they made their way off the bus. Travis Templeton, said Bruce. He's a 5th grader and the biggest bully in the whole school. Wow, thought Heidi. School was much easier at home. The morning seemed to whiz by. Maloney held her nose whenever she saw Heidi, but nothing else happened. Heidi had lunch with Bruce and Lucy. Now she yawned her way through the drama class. When the school was finally over, she was able to visit Aunt Trudy. Heidi ran from the bus stop to Aunt Trudy's house and rang the bell. Aunt Trudy's parrot squawked in the kitchen. She opened the door and gave Heidi a squeeze. Heidi got a whiff of flowers, tea, and spice. Aunt Trudy ran a mail-order perfume business from home. She made all her perfumes with Aunt Witch's brews in her kitchen. Come in, said Aunt Trudy. I made apple cider. Heidi brushed through the beaded curtains that led into the living room. She took off her coat and sat down on the couch. Aunt Trudy's cats, Agnes and Hilda, jumped onto her lap. Aunt Trudy sat down on a soft mushroom-shaped stool. She gave Heidi some ginger snaps and apple cider. So, how's school going? Asked Aunt Trudy. Not so great, said Heidi. I know it's hard being new. said Aunt Judy. Tell me about it. Heidi told Aunt Judy about Mini Milani and how she had gotten Heidi cast as a scary tree in the class play. She also told her about the bully on the school bus. Give Milani time, said Aunt Judy. She's not used to having a new girl in the class. As for the bully, just ignore him. I bet if you do, he'll stop bothering you. I wish I could cast a spell on both of them, said Heidi. By the way, do you have a black plastic spider? Aunt Judy laughed at first. She knew exactly what Heidi was up to. But then she sighed and looked at Heidi with an raised eyebrow. You must be careful with your powers, said Aunt Judy. You can't turn people into toads and mice, or make them forget, just because they make you mad. I just want to scare Milani, said Heidi. I will reverse the spell after the play. We'll just have to solve their problems without magic first, said Aunt Judy. That's why they go to school. Have you ever practiced magic on your customers? Asked Heidi. Never, said Aunt Judy. And you must promise me you'll never use magic at school. Maybe her aunt was right. Maybe Heidi should just learn how to get along with others. Okay, agreed Heidi, but she was careful not to promise. After their snack, Aunt Judy had to get back to work. She gave Heidi a hug and asked her to take out the trash before she left. Heidi carried the paper bag of trash into the barrel. On the way, she noticed a cat toy in the top of the trash. She pulled it out and felt it with her fingers. It was stuffed with pine needles. Then she snipped it. Catnip, thought Heidi. That's one of the spell ingredients. She decided to take the cat toy with her, just in case. She stuffed it in her pouch and dumped the paper bag into the barrel. Then she ran down the sidewalk for home. Heidi Heckelbeck casts a spell. Chapter 5. Timber. Heidi stopped thinking about casting spells and worked on getting along with others. When Milani made fun of her clothes, Heidi ignored her. When Travis gave her the evil eye, she pretended not to notice. And when Lucy wanted to be first on the monkey bars, Heidi let her go first. Heidi was a good citizen for 3 whole weeks. But then everything went bonkers at the dress rehearsal. Heidi rubbed down brown face paint on her face and her hands to look like a tree bark. Then she helped Lucy stuff her curly dark hair into an old lady wig. Hello, Auntie M, said Heidi. Lucy laughed. You should see my munchkin wig, said Lucy. She pulled another wig from her backpack. It had an orange curlicue hair with a rubber bald patch in front. Scary, right? Said Lucy. Heidi laughed so hard that she snorted. What's so funny? Asked Bruce. Heidi and Lucy turned around. Brucey had on silver face paint, silver clothes, and a kitchen funnel on top of his head. He held a plastic axe on his hand. The girls laughed even harder. I'm the Tin Man, said Bruce. So what? You look like you belong in a junkyard, said Lucy. Well, you look like you belong in an old folks' home, said Bruce. And Heidi looks like she belongs in a pigsty, says Milani. Milani was wearing her Dorothy costume, but she acted like the Wicked Witch. Mr. Naughty-Walls, their drama teacher, clapped her hands. Please put on your costume, Heidi. Heidi joined the two other students who were scary apple trees. They all already had on their costumes. Mrs. Naughty-Walls lowered the cardboard tree trunk over Heidi's body. Heidi could barely move. She had to twist the trunk to find the hole for her face. Then she poked her arms through the hole in either side of the tree. Hold your arms in the air like branches, said Mrs. Naughty-Walls. Heidi held up her arms. She felt like a total ding-dong. Places, please, everyone, called Mrs. Naughty-Walls. Now, let's start by practicing the apple tree scene. Come on, Stanley, says Milani. Her ruby slippers clacked down the stairs in front of the stage. She held a basket with a stuffed Toto peeking out. Stanley Stonewicker had the part of the scarecrow. He was Milani's closest friend. Action, said Mrs. Naughty-Walls. Dorothy ran up the stairs onto the stage. Oh, look, she said. Apples! She tried to pick an apple from one of the trees, but it slapped her hand. Ouch! Cried Dorothy. Get your grubby paws off my apples, said the tree. Did you say something? Asked Dorothy. We don't have talking trees in Kansas. Go pick on somebody else. Yeah, said the tree. Yeah, said the second tree. Heidi watched from the hole in her tree. Come on, Dorothy, said the scarecrow. You don't want to eat those wormy apples. How dare you make fun of my apples, said the first tree. Fire away, guys! The trees launched their styrofoam apples. Dorothy and the scarecrow dodged the apples. They also picked up a few for Dorothy's basket. When Dorothy stood up, she bumped on one of Heidi's branches on purpose. Heidi's costume shifted to one side. Help! Cried Heidi. I can't see! She teetered one way, then tottered the other. She turned in circles, then splat! Heidi tipped over on the center stage. Timber, said Milani. She nudged Stanley and they both laughed. Heidi could hear Mrs. Naughty Waffles scurrying across the stage. She pulled Heidi's costume off. Are you okay, dear? Asked Mrs. Naughty Waffles. Heidi's hair was tangled and stuck to her face paint. She also felt too embarrassed to notice if she was hurt. I'm fine, said Heidi. But Heidi wasn't fine. She was furious. That Milani needed to learn a lesson once and for all. Heidi Heckelbeck casts a spell. Chapter 6 Frankie. The spell was back on. Tomorrow was opening night, and Heidi had to find the rest of the ingredients. She still needed one eye of a gingerbread man, one black plastic spider, one piece of straw, one teaspoon of salt crossed out, 3 cornflakes crossed out, 2 sour gummy worms, 1 puppy tooth, 1 tablespoon of catnip crossed out, 3 splashes of water. Heidi studied the list. Candy will be easy, she thought. She ran to the kitchen pantry and found the plastic Halloween pumpkins. She dumped the leftover candy on the floor and sifted through the mini candy bars and loose candy corn. Then, like a glittering gem and treasure chest, Heidi uncovered a black plastic spider. Yes! Said Heidi as she held up her find. Not so fast, said Henry, who was standing in the doorway. That's mine. Finders keepers, said Heidi. Give it, said Henry, or I'll tell. Wait, said Heidi. I'll trade my mini lightsaber I got in the burger pit. Done, said Heidi. It's on my nightstand, said Heidi. Henry bolted upstairs. Phew, said Heidi. But she still needed sour gummy worms. Heidi's mother loved sour gummies. Gummy worms, gummy bears, you can name it. You name it. Heidi tiptoed across the kitchen and pulled open her mother's secret candy drawer. She thought butterscotch candies and mints. They have to be somewhere here, she thought. She reached farther into the drawer. Her hand did something. Aha! Heidi pulled out a small crumpled bag from the back of the drawer. She peeked inside. She saw red licorice and sour gummy worms. Score! said Heidi. She quickly stuffed 2 sour gummy worms into her pouch and 1 into her mouth. Heidi, called Mom. Time to go. Heidi shoved the bag to the drawer. Okay, said Heidi, trying to act normal. Heidi had a play date with Bruce. he had asked her over to see his laboratory. Mom drove Heidi to Bruce's house. He answered the door in his white lab coat and safety glasses. His puppy, Frankie, wagged his tail and barked at Heidi. Heidi let Frankie sniff her hand. Has he lost any teeth yet? Asked Heidi. Not that I know of, said Bruce. Heidi followed Bruce down to the basement. She looked around at all his experiments. Bruce had built a robot, a tornado made of chicken wire and cotton balls. Some things were labeled top secret. Would you like to see how the bigger sticker works? Asked Bruce. Sure, said Heidi. Bruce tapped some keys on his computer. Heidi watched the screen. She saw something moving. That's Frankie, said Bruce. Heidi couldn't see Frankie, but she could see what he was doing. Is he supposed to be eating hamburger buns? Asked Heidi. Bruce looked closely at the screen. Oh no, he said. Come on. Heidi and Bruce raced up the stairs to the kitchen. There they found Frankie happily munching on hamburger rolls and wagging his tail. Bruce tugged on the bag of rolls. Frankie growled playfully. Give him a chew toy, said Bruce. Heidi spotted a basket of food toys, chew toys, and grabbed a plastic pork chop. Here, Frankie, said Heidi, waving the pork chop back and forth. Frankie had no interest in the fake pork chop. He barked and whined at the hamburger rolls, which were now on the counter. Heidi was about to toss the pork chop back into the basket when she noticed something stuck in the side. It was a tooth. I found a puppy tooth in the chew toy, said Heidi. Let me see, said Bruce. Heidi picked the tooth out of the pork chop and handed it to Bruce. That's so cool, said Bruce. He pulled a magnifying glass out of his lab coat to get a better look. May I still trade you for a shark tooth? Asked Heidi. She tried to not sound too eager. Sure, said Bruce. I'd much rather have a shark tooth any day. He handed the tooth to Heidi, and she popped it into her pouch. Now she had nearly all the ingredients for a smell. Just 3 more to go. And a stamp peel. I'll promise to bring a shark tooth to school tomorrow, said Heidi. Cool, said Bruce. Then they stumped back down the stairs to the basement to check out some more science experiments.